Because you were running against him, or because for some other? Do you know what his assistant's name is? Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm there on. Yeah. No, I'm refreshing. No, nothing. I'll just tell people they gotta follow me on Instagram or follow you. We'll just work on it next time. It's no big deal. Does that work? Perfect. Yeah. All right. Well, that just solves it, right? All right. So, do you have another Sam Lux from Montana? Okay. Oh, wild. All right. Yeah, I'm live on Instagram. Should be good to go, man. Can I stop screen? Sick.
All right. Hey there, everyone. Sorry for some technical difficulties while we were first getting things going, but my name is Sam Lux. Right here with me is Matthew Leavenworth, and we are here talking politics in Montana.
Yeah, yeah. We were also debating the show name because this is something that we're going to kind of kick off and try to make a consistent thing. I think in part just as a reaction to the fact that there is so much bad information out there. Like it's that I don't know that people know what to believe, what to think. And you and I think are on the ground. We're connected to the people who are involved and have access at least to some good information that I think for democracy to work, people have to understand it. People have to
Yeah.
understand what's at stake, what people are running for, who's running, and there's just been so much bad faith, just like entanglement and people screwing with our elections and out of state money and dark money and special interests and you name it. And so that's what we're attempting to do. I think we were thinking about the cowboy and the counselor.
Yeah, I'm down for it. I mean, got to get rid of previously everything I was doing with Brian Miller. We were the Anvil in the bar, but I think that this is going to be a good rendition. Matt, do me a favor, shift a little bit to your right. There you go. Yeah, now all right. That centers you a little bit more. Make sure, otherwise on mobile, half your face was cut off.
No worries. Well, I mean, I think that so we're playing with some technology that I think it's state of the art. It has the capacity to scale at a pretty incredibly high level. And so, I mean, I think that we're looking for different methods, different techniques to try to reach people because, how people are making their decisions, I don't believe is in their best interest. And so I can talk about it a little bit, but we are using a multi-live stream technology that you've really kind of piloted, and so it allows for you to go live on all of your platforms, me to go live on all of my platforms, and any guests that we have, we can also stream on their platforms as well. And
Yeah.
when we with Ed Doctor and Brian, man, like it was unbelievable the level of engagement that we were able to achieve, and it's a way of potentially circumventing the amount of dark money that is coming into our elections and our races, because currently, like, that's how to reach people, right? Is money. Like, and we watched that play out over and over and over again in all of our primaries. And that's really unfortunate, because the people with all of the money have an agenda. And generally speaking, that agenda is just not in our best interest. And I think that is maybe what is potentially refreshing about what we're trying to do here is I am just a dude in Billings. I have a nonprofit. I was a counselor for a really long time. I have a PhD in counselor education. So, but that's a field that's fairly, it's not all that relevant. And then, you're a candidate and just all around badass.
What was a candidate? Maybe will be again, but not right now.
But so, I mean, I think more so than mine, although because I threw my hat in the ring, first working with Russ Cleveland, and then I wound up connecting with Alani and then Brian. And so now, I mean, I've just sort of befriended them, partially because they're the leaders that are standing up for all of the rest of us. And for me, that's my kids, and that's the future that I have to hand to my kids. And so I want to, I want to promote you guys and celebrate you and just have your backs, because leadership is tough and it's exhausting. And I think, especially with as nasty as the game of politics is, that, and if we can't support each other, we won't get to the finish line, and we need to.
Well, and that's the thing is, I mean, right now, especially you look at on the more progressive side of politics in Eastern Montana, and I mean, the problem is that we have so much division between all of the different micro factions that have popped up. Every single one of them, believing, we're the only way forward. That it makes it so that not only is there not a unified front pushing for more progressive policy, but it makes it so that everyone who is looks disorganized and looks like they are, just another the radical left, yelling, into the wind. And I think that that's what we really need to get past. And we need to be able to come together and actually have the conversations, look past, some of the differences that are out there. I know that the last couple of weeks have been pretty divisive in the political sphere, and be able to, figure out what the common ground is and actually build for the people, and stop this thing of personal political brinksmanship where it becomes around, well, I'm right and you're wrong, and instead becomes around, what we're actually going to do for the average person living in Eastern Montana instead.
Mm-hmm. In Western Montana and all of Montana, and hopefully all of America, because if we don't figure this stuff out, like we, and I think that there's an appetite for it as well, because people are just tired of being duped. We're tired of being lied to. We're tired of being controlled, and people are so hungry for an alternative. And I just out of curiosity, man, I for me, some of the first people that come to mind are the Beer Buds and Big Sky podcast, but it's like there's some people out there who are trying to hold the line, who are looking at alternative methods to really reach people. And I'm curious as to like who comes to mind for you as far as like kind of the defenders of it's almost like the information sphere, right? Because it's so polluted right now with bad faith money. And I mean, the stuff with Alani Bankhead to me just comes top of mind, where it's like, it makes me feel like I need to go take a shower. Like it's so fucking dirty, man.
You're calling me out here. I can actually say, as somebody that has now been running in some degree or another a podcast for the past 8 months or so, I've never actually watched a podcast by anyone. So I'm I do pay attention to a lot of the news that's happening, but I do not yeah, I don't actually engage a whole lot with some of the other groups, and mainly because there has been so much division, when it comes to how they want to interact and how a lot of it becomes. I think that a lot of the groups actually start off very much focused on trying to actually help people, but then quickly end up devolving into what's going to actually get them the most clicks. And I definitely don't think that's what Ed or any of them are doing. I believe that they really are still working for the best of it. But I've definitely just taken the tack of putting my nose to the grindstone instead, working with folks like our unions, working with folks that are out there on the ground actually pushing to make an effect. And I tend to spend less time trying to do the talking head thing. Speaking of which, we actually just got a comment from Joshua Mangold. By the way, hey, Josh, always good to hear from you. Saying, out of curiosity, how do you guys feel about Brian Miller and some of his followers attacking the FLCIO, I think it's AFL-CIO, and their 50,000 strong union members?
Ah, man.
This is actually something we were going to be getting into here in a little bit, Josh. But Matt, I'm going to let you take this away because I have some very strong opinions on this.
Yeah. All right. So I love Brian. Like, first and foremost, I talk to him regularly. He's somebody I truly believe in. He's one of the smartest people I know. And one of the most refreshing things about Brian to me is that nobody's going to tell Brian what to do. Like he's just like a man of his own conscience, and he's just like a purely Montanan character. And so, like I also am very good friends with Alani Bankhead, and also think incredibly highly of her. And there was a little spat there, and I just recall kind of feeling somewhere in between that, and maybe wanting that not to continue, but Brian's his own man, and he's going to take his own lines, and he's going to fight for what he believes in, and I think that the issue that he cares most about right now, and there's a number of really good reasons for why he cares so much about it, because it's an example of how distant politics is from the rest of us, right? So like the data center thing is just his that's the thing that he's going to champion, because 80 to 90% of Montanans don't want data centers, and we don't want unregulated data centers. Like, there could not be a clear democratic mandate from Montana that we don't want those things. And so I think that Brian believes that's a unifying issue, but I also think it's a democratic issue, right? Like if 90% of the people in Montana don't want those, then a politician who's running on a pro data center platform just is out of touch and unrepresentative of what we want, not listening to us. And so, and I got kind of a story about this. I can be a bit of a party crasher, man. But I went down to Butte. First, I introduced Alani down there. We were just talking to the unions, and then I kind of party crashed Sam Forstag. Like he showed up to talk to them, and they actually kicked me out of their little union party. And but anyway, so I mean, I talked, 4 of them showed up for Alani, and kind of nodded and whatever, and then 40 of them showed up for Sam Forstag, and that's the group I got kicked out of. And it could not have been clearer that they just wanted data centers. I don't know, it was just very overt. It was a one line, Alani, do you support data centers? And that was that was about the entirety of the conversation. And so I don't know, that's a problem to me. I don't know a whole lot more about the unions than that. It was that was just my experience. And so, and I know that they want them for some good reasons. They want work. They want, they want to be the ones to build them, and there's job security in that. And I understand that, but it's just not representative of what Montanans are telling us. And so I suppose I think that's where Brian is coming from. And I know there was a bit of a spat there. And so there's conflict, but I mean, I think that's why I like Brian. He'll take on anybody. He'll tell me to fuck off. And because that's him, man. And I prefer authentic people that stand on their beliefs. And so that's Brian. Sometimes he says things that I don't agree with, but I do appreciate his authenticity.
So now for my take on it, and there's a couple of things I'm gonna have to take you to task on here.
Yeah, man.
So first off, I mean, Brian, one of the closest friends that I have in the state. and I wish him all the best, but at the same time, and I say this unequivocally, I personally think the way that he handled the issue with the unions is absolutely not an acceptable way to go about it. I think that, especially he is somebody that has decided to become a public figure. And in doing so, he needs to be able to take a diplomatic approach, especially not even just with the people that he disagrees with, but especially with the people that he disagrees with. And approaching it with a sense of hostility, that, first off, doesn't actually help his cause. And second of all, it does everything to detract from it, because those who are going to be worried that he is going to approach other situations that they may care about more with a sense of diplomacy are going to see that as a negative drawback. So personally, I think it actually does more harm to his campaign than good. That said, I also think that we need to have a bit more of that conversation around the data centers, and I'll get to that in a minute. But first, I want to read a couple of comments we've gotten in. Carrie Olson asks about data centers. Carrie, that's actually the topic that we are going to be talking about here in just a second, so hold on to it. And Josh Mangold says, totally appreciate your perspectives, but first thing is not for data centers. He just hasn't spoken out against them. I mean, that's smart player, right? He isn't trying to advocate for them, but he's willing to listen to the workers in Montana and represent everybody, and that's what we need. I've talked to Sam Lux at length about this, and although he isn't totally against them, he's not totally with them, and I appreciate that. And yes, that is actually the topic I want to get to next, because personally, the let's ban data centers is a really stupid talking point. And Carrie, before you come at me, I'm going to say that because it is too broad of a statement. I have nothing against banning the hyper data centers that are going to be over consuming water, are going to be, completely destroying the way of life of small towns in Montana. I have nothing against that.
For Billings right now,
right, but that
is a monster.
Right. But again, that is a very different conversation than we're going to ban all data centers. And it's an oversimplification that takes and dramatically screws up everybody's day. Now, I mean, a great example, I literally have a data center in my garage. According to the way that Brian is representing it, that would say that we're going to.
I believe that Sam does, in fact, have a data center in his.
I do. I've got two U42 racks in my garage right now. That's what runs a lot of my stuff. And that's the thing, is that we need to have a serious conversation. This is something that I spoke during my campaign aggressively with unions about, and where, yes, like Josh said, I'm not fully in favor of data centers. I am very, very okay with aggressive, just crush them into the ground regulation. I really like the idea of doing that. And I like that because when I went to the unions, I brought to them like this. I brought other groups, to the exact same extent, is sitting there and saying, hey, we are going to, all right, Carrie, that's fine. See you later.
No.
Yeah, she's not very happy with me right now.
I'm going to text her right now, man. No, come on, Carrie. Give us.
See, and that's like, we have to have the conversation, though. And see, here's the thing.
I'm texting it for the record.
So here's the thing. The data center, and the one that's going to be going in, or the one that they're trying to force through north of Billings, this is an open loop data center that is going to massively overconsume water, massively overconsume electricity, and displace the way of life for the people who are living in Broadview. I think that's abhorrent. I completely support pushing back against that. I hope that their signature gathering effort is good. I hope that they are able to do everything they can to stop that center from going into place. Now, that said, there are versions of these data centers that can be built that do not overconsume these resources, that are actually going to be beneficial to the communities that they go into. These centers, though, are not being built.
And we don't want to over-represent Brian here. He would deserve to be able to answer that question.
Yeah, sure.
I think the majority of Montanans, man, that 90% it's not exactly no data centers. It's more we don't want them just shoved down our throats without any capacity to advocate for ourselves or regulate them or benefit.
But see, that's the thing, though, is that, so this is actually something that Brian and I have talked extensively about. And Josh, don't worry, man. I want you to keep dropping in your stuff into the chat. We need to have this conversation.
Yeah, man, we want the good stuff. Please disagree.
Exactly. Let's have the conversation. But see, here's the thing, though, and this is like when I was talking to Brian, and this is actually one of the reasons why I personally, especially after what his interaction with the AFL-CIO, I have actually formally stepped back from his campaign. I am no longer working with Brian because of this very thing, is that Brian has talked to me about understanding that, yeah, we're going to need the regulation, but he has also stated that because, quite frankly, it is the most extreme point of view. It's the point of view that's going to, get people aggressively excited and rallied. He is actually fully in favor of pushing for that total entire ban. No consideration for if it's part of the hospital infrastructure, no consideration if it's pre-existing, no consideration for any of those things. And that's a mistake. I do genuinely believe that is a real fundamental mistake that we can't overlook. And it's the thing is that there's also a very different conversation because like when I went to the unions talking about, I was like, yeah, I'm not in favor of these big open, source data centers or open loop data centers are going to be destroying our environment. But let's talk about these closed loop models that don't use any water, use less electricity, don't have the fan, so they're not making all the noise, and make it so that that's the regulation, maybe not even for them to go in here in Montana, but to go anywhere. Because quite frankly, the position that I was running for and that Brian's running for, this is not a position just to govern Montana. This is a position to govern the nation. And it's a conversation we need to have because our environment, it affects the whole nation. And I was able to talk to the union guys, and they were able to see eye to eye with me because I sat there and said, hey, look, not only is this going to protect our environment, but it's also going to make it so that these centers that are built, they're going to take longer to build, they're going to require more labor to build, and they're going to require more maintenance to maintain. All things which actually benefit our unions more in the long run. And that's the thing is that I feel like, and I know I've been ranting for a minute, I'll shut up here in a second, but I feel like having this absolutist thing of absolutely no, we're not going to talk about regulation, we're not going to talk about any of these things that need to happen, we're just going to say no. What it does in the long run is it detracts from the conversation and it takes people that actually do want the same thing and it puts them on opposite sides of an argument.
So my only so one is I just don't want to attempt to put words in Brian's mouth for him. And I know you talk to him all the time and I talk to him fairly regularly as well. But I think his position, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's almost like you can't negotiate with people who are negotiating in bad faith. And I see that from him. And it's like his hardline stance is because he doesn't think that these are people who are playing a fair game. Right. And so I think that if you go to the negotiating table, just know that there's somebody circling around your back with a whole lot of money. I mean that's to me
except here's the thing though, he's looking to be elected to a position. He's not going to be in a position where he has to negotiate with a private company. He's not another private company having to negotiate against him, or a city having to negotiate with a private company that's purchasing land, anything like that. He's going in to be a politician, which means that he can write legislation, get the backing of the many, many other people in Congress right now that are running for Congress right now that want to push for heavy regulation. And there is no negotiation. He goes to the table against these companies. He says, here's the new law. You have to build it in a way that doesn't use all this water. You have to build it in a way that doesn't have all the fans, that doesn't use all the electricity. Take it or get the fuck out. And I think that's where I take issue with it, is the fact of it's the approach of saying we have to negotiate when the position is not that of a negotiator. It's that of literally the law.
Well, man, so I love that as a pivot, because I do want to pivot off of this a little bit because let's just have Brian come on and then
I'd love to have the conversation with him right here on the chat.
If he says all of those things, then so be it. I just thought I would write Carrie. Sam is ridiculous with that data center in my home BS. The workaround talking points are disgusting. Plus, Sam isn't a candidate.
You are absolutely right. I'm not a candidate. And,
I told Carrie, we're going to have Carrie on as well, I think, at some point in time. I mean, that's like the point of this, though, man, is to restore some level of discussion and actually all of us can have different perspectives. And so part of the pivot too, and you're welcome to respond to that if you wanted to. I just got to.
I just want to drop in a couple of comments people had just to make sure they were able to get in there. Josh says, I was at the platform convention and Sam started here not working with him anymore because I like Brad. I think he's a nice guy. We just disagree on this one issue and we have to be willing to talk and listen at the same time. I agree. And that's the thing is I personally, like, Brian is still, as I said, in my opinion, one of my best friends that I've ever had. I love him dearly and I'm still there to support him. But, it's the thing is that, we we have to have some conversations. And I just personally felt that his was a little bit too aggressive. Not even that I think his position maybe was too extreme, but there's a better way to deliver it. And then from Instagram, we have Katie says, that's definitely not what I thought Brian was saying last week. Says he changed his mind, or is this much misunderstanding? So Brian is still very much building his talking points on this. And he, like, I will say, the thing that I do love is that Brian, he's very, very passionate. And he came out the gate really, really strong at the convention with a very absolute point of view. But I do think that he is talking to the folks. I know he talks to me all the time. And I think that he is going to look at more options. I just feel that right now it's a little bit too extreme of a position.
Yeah, all right. Maybe leave it there, because I just do think that he would have a lot. I mean, he's like one of the most intelligent, well thought out people. And there's always this like sort of dichotomy that we struggle with, which is like, what's a winning message? Like, right? Because ultimately, like, if we keep losing, like, they're just going to wind up being jammed down our throats, whether we like it or not. Because like there are a whole bunch of candidates that, as far as I can tell, are just planning on allowing them to be jammed down our throats. And so
it's awful.
The nuance on the other side of people who are like, well, maybe regulation or none at all. Like to me, that's kind of the same team. And then there's all these people, and to me, that's like Seth Bodner, man, and like and just some of those connections with the whole tester thing, and like what they did to Alani, and and I think like Aaron Flint, man, like that dude is definitely gonna elect. Like, there's just no question.
That's a whole nightmare.
Yeah, like, and so like I think we have to figure out how to shore up our defenses and stand together. And if we don't, like, we're just gonna keep losing, which seems to be like what we like doing best. So.
Well, and if I can give one last thought on the way out, the one thing I would say is that in Congress, you don't get to do anything alone. And whatever your tactic is, it's going to have to get the votes. Otherwise, you are going to be at the most extreme edge. And you may have promised something that many people like the sound of, but it is going to, at the end of the day, not be actually possible to get passed. And I'm aware that is how politics have been done for a long time, is to promise the moon and then deliver SpaceX. But I think that it is something to consider. Is what is the position that we can actually get past, that will be able to get enough votes in Congress in both chambers and actually get signed by the president, that's going to do anything to actually be helpful. That's just final thought I'd have on it.
Which, and Elon might actually get us the moon, man. Like, I don't know, that he's pretty wild, man. But
if he does, it's going to be with a toilet that explodes halfway through the flight. Remember when that happened? I'm just saying, remember.
All right, well, but like, here's one other thought too, which is it's almost why I care less about policy than I do about personality or authenticity or the person that we're sending. Like, I know there's a lot of people that like, I mean, I remember talking with Russ about this. Like, he was going to be the healthcare, everybody gets healthcare candidate. And like, the reality was that even if he won, he wasn't going to get everybody healthcare. And that is like, there can be all of these positions. There can be all of these, like, these are the policies I stand for. But the reality is that, like, your capacity as a member of the House or the member of the Senate to actually do that thing that you're standing up for it's fairly low. Like, like you can get it through the House and you can get it through the Senate, and then the president just axes it, and then poof, So like, I'm actually more concerned with character, which is again why I like Brian so much. One of the reasons I like Alani so much. I think Brian's gonna, like, the dude is just a hunter, man. Like, even what we were planning on talking a little bit about with like Mafia Funk and just the status of our party in Montana, which I am so utterly disgusted with. And I mean, just the calls for the resignation of Shannon O'Brien that I just hear everywhere now. Like, I think people are tired of being lied to. They're tired of just a total lack of authenticity. They're tired of people who say one thing and do something else. And these, at least these two candidates, man, like Alani and Brian, like, they just are who they say they are. And like, you can disagree with them on data centers. You can disagree with them on, like, they're going to have a policy that you disagree with. Like, that's because, like, a politician is like, what are you running on, man? Like 500 different topics. Like, you're running on housing, you're running on agriculture, you're running on healthcare, you're running on, and there's just no possible way that you can write a line that everybody agrees with all the time. And one of the problems with the Democratic Party is that we have all of these one issue voters. Like if you're not, if you don't think like that gender is, like is a society, like something we constructed out of society, like then you don't get my vote. And like and we can just completely drown ourselves, by selecting these singular issues and then expecting that the whole world has to operate with our singular viewpoints. And I see that. So like to me, it is more of a character issue, man. Like I would love to send Brian because he is just going to go tear Washington to pieces. Like that's what, like, because he's a freaking hunter, man. And Alani is too. Like she's a bad guy hunter, and I just love that. And there's sincere people who really care about us. Like, and I mean, an Alani story, right? So for the Pale of Ford podcast, that's my actual podcast because I never intended to be in politics. And like, this is the last place I ever wanted to be. Although then I met cool people like Sam and was like, all right, I just want to hang out with these people. And Ed, like, dude, I always want to talk to Ed. Like, like I always want to crack a beer and go on the Beer Buds and Big Sky podcast. Like, it's just like, it's very fun. And so I've met all these phenomenal people who are standing up for us and like gotten myself a little bit more involved, but like, this is not my area of expertise. It's not any of those things, but like, I do know that we've just sort of lost our soul. And if we don't find some people with some soul, but like, all right, so here's the Alani story, right? So on my podcast, I did an episode about a woman who went missing. Her name is Jamie. She went missing in 2012, and you can listen to the episode. It's really powerful. It was her daughter, Taylor Smith, and then Alani Bankhead just came on the episode to support Taylor and support this demand for answers. Like this case has just gone unsolved, and it should have been solved. Like it's very clear that we know who did this. Like it was just like the police just dropped the ball. And since then, Alani, she drove out 4 hours from Helena to do a news interview about the disappearance of Jamie Grossman, and then drove back home, like literally just to help us out. And she's connected me with people in the FBI. She's connected me with a host of resources, like because she cares about this young woman, Taylor, who's in our community. And like, to me, I've just seen her character. I mean, like when she was, here for the Democratic Party, she stayed at my house, and like, she's just a remarkably good person, like who really cares about, especially little people, like especially people who can't advocate very well for themselves. And so that's like the type of person I would love to send to Washington,
yeah, for sure.
And they're going to like, rattle their sabers about all these different policy issues. But like is Alani going to go solve healthcare? Like, no, like the answer is literally no. Because the process itself, the democratic process itself, is so bought and paid for. And so, I mean, these omnibus bills, man, like the system is so broken that the best we can hope for is to send some people who operate in good faith. And so we've got two of them. And I think Sam Forstag is too, although, like I'm watching the machine crank pretty hard on his behalf. And
well, and that's the thing, is I think that's another really big thing to talk about, is that, like Montana's already trying to, actually champion some things to get the dark money out of politics. I know Russell just came on with the Montana plan and everything. And I think that, it shows that there is becoming more and more of a push to be able to like get some transparency and make sure that we do actually have candidates who run. And I agree with you. Like, I do genuinely think that Brian is the kind of person, it's the thing that I admire the most about him, is that when he sees something that he perceives as a wrong, he will go full force at it, 100% until that wrong has been resolved. And I do think we need people like that in Congress. I also, can say is, something is that we also need to make sure that the people, though, who are put in those positions can do that in a way that is diplomatic without getting lost in the diplomacy and ending up not actually accomplishing anything, because we see that all too often too. And I think that Alani also is somebody that, does show that she has that potential. And, I can definitely say, I criticized, during the, I personally criticized, Alani's contribution she was getting from the big PACs during the primary. And, personally, would I have liked to have seen her speak out more against it? Yes. Do I think it makes her the villain? Not at all. And I do still think that she is 100% the best shot that we have right now as having somebody to actually be able to fight back against this thing in the Senate. And I think that, the worst thing that could happen is ending up with a split vote that allows Olney to go any freaking further, because, well, and yeah, it is true. Nobody on their own is going to be able to actually like really push back on this on their own. We are going to have to get people in there that can have that unified front. We just got another comment. What do you guys think the Montana plan will do as far as union members contributing in elections? I actually have a very specific thought on this, but Matt, I would really love to hear.
Oh man, I go for it, and maybe
Okay.
just for, I mean, because like we're using a lot of jargon, and because I mean part of this too is to like get information to people who don't necessarily have it, and so like let's make sure we like stop and kind of define what it is that we're talking about, like what is the Montana plan, and just kind of go through some of that. So I mean, hopefully we can pull people into the discussion. And
Sorry, I just also got to let know that my keyboard is a little loud. I do apologize. I will work on that. Need to get some better audio dampening. To be fair, I also did just respond by typing with my keyboard, so also sorry about that. Okay, so Montana Plan is the, I believe it's Initiative 194 ballot initiative to try to get dark money out of politics and force these large contributors to actually be able to show where that money is coming from. It's a really, really important thing, and it's something that the whole country right now has bated breath around, because if it is able to get pushed through here in Montana, it sets a precedent that can then be taken to other states all across the country. I'm really, really excited about it. To answer the question specifically about unions. Now, I am, of course, I'm a huge union person myself. My family comes from strong union backgrounds, and I believe in working with and fighting for our unions. Now, the way that I see it is that, quite frankly, we need to push to get money out of politics altogether. And yes, that does mean that it's going to detract from how our unions directly interact with politicians. Personally, though, I see this as
interest group. I mean, like any special interest group.
Right, exactly, any special interest group. Now, I see this, though, as not necessarily a bad thing for two reasons. The first is that right now there's these talking points, and I was actually in a room with a bunch of elected congressmen back in DC in November who were talking about how expensive it is to get a bill pushed through. And the things they were talking about was clearly just them finding ways to extract more money from special interest groups, including the good special interest groups like our unions, to put more money into their own pocket. Because quite frankly, it does not take a whole lot of money. It takes getting yourself a piece of paper and a pen and just writing down what you need to say and pushing it forward. I'm aware there are more steps to that. That's oversimplification, but you get my point. It doesn't cost tens of millions of dollars to write a piece of legislation. And if you have somebody in office who is actually advocating for the people, they're going to write that legislation without that kind of insane bill attached to it. The second part of it, I would say, is that I think that it shows that there is still a way that our fundamentally decent groups that are trying to promote the working class can still actually do something. And that would be to take and do at a union meeting, put out a call saying, hey, we're backing X candidate, we're backing Alani, we're backing whoever it may be, and sit there and say, here's what the union wants to put forward, and here are sorry, I did not realize that they're not considered. I apologize. I got the wrong name in there. I know that unions would also be under the classifications covered by I-194. Different name, though. I do apologize for that. I just got corrected. Unions are not special interest groups. They fall under a different category, but I know they would still be affected here. But I think, though, that the thing with that, though, is that when they do that, all it requires is a little bit of additional paperwork to sit there and say, hey, this is exactly where this group's come from. Here's exactly what they have asked for in exchange for that, for that donation into this campaign. Here are the people who are behind it. Here's the vote that was held to have it. It's a transparency initiative. The I-194 wouldn't actually prevent the unions themselves from being able to actually contribute with and work with a campaign. And personally, I think that's great, because where it's going to really expose those nasty dark money groups that are just trying to like do all the sick shade stuff, like the stuff with the postcards that were being sent out about Riley. The unions there, we know that we support them. We know who those people are. I would proudly sit there and say, yeah, Josh and the boys over there, they're the guys who are supporting me. And that doesn't really take away from those groups. At least that's my understanding. What do you think, Matt?
I mean, I would just say that if you eliminate money from the equation, everybody can still advocate for the cause that they care about. Like, whether it's special interests or some other designation, but it's a group of people with a shared interest, right? Like you're advocating for certain outcomes, and like there are plenty of ways to do that. Like what we're doing right now is one of those ways. Like you just have to get loud, and and you do that by through democracy, through shared objectives, like speaking out, like calling your senators, it would just shift the onus of how this is done back to people instead of money, man. And yeah, go for it.
Well, and like I would just say that, I think that because, having been a candidate and having financed almost my entire campaign out of my own pocket, running a campaign is massively expensive. And there is a certain part where money does come into it. As much as I'd like to say that there isn't, there is. But having that forced transparency, demanding that we know where every red cent came from, does a lot of good, because quite frankly, and I'm not saying this as a slam on Alani. I genuinely support Alani. I will do anything. I'll be out knocking doors for when that comes around to my area. But I think that it does show, because when those postcards were being sent out that were against Riley, and there was a lot of connections there with Lonnie. There was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of things that they're saying, okay, I don't understand where this is coming from. I don't know what's going on. It makes her look shady. It makes anybody connected with her look shady, even if she didn't have anything to do with it. And having something out there on the books that would make it so that we would be required to know where that money came from, I think that would actually do a lot of good for everyone. That right there makes so that we can sit there and say, okay, well, we don't like this group, but we at least know where it came from. And let's say that it is a group, we're like, oh no, these people are straight out super villain level evil, and if they're supporting this person, maybe we don't want to support them. And it also makes it a lot easier for somebody like Lonnie to sit there and say if she supports her or not, because quite frankly, there's a great chance she didn't even know where that money was coming from. And
she released statement after statement. The problem was though that her broadcast is limited by the fact that she didn't have lots of money. So somebody just came in and told her, outspent her and told a louder story than she was capable of telling, because she was responding. She was saying, I support the Montana plan. I don't want dark money in elections. I don't know where this money is coming from. I'm actually not even allowed to contact a special interest group to coordinate with them. I don't want this. This isn't me. She said that over and over and over again. And it's I don't know what else people wanted from her, because her voice was not as loud as the money. That was truly the problem, which is, again, to the core of this problem. And I want to talk about this money, man, because this to me is it's where we're at. And what happened to Alani and to Riley, and what is going on with Seth Bodden, it's so disturbing to me. And how this has been embraced by the interior of our Democratic Party is it is at the heart of the obfuscation, at the lying, at the deceit. And it's one of the reasons, it's one of the things I just can't solve in my head, which is why people can be so utterly dissatisfied with the Republican Party, with Trump. Where his poll numbers are dismal. They're the worst ever, but they hate us more. And I want to unpack some of this stuff, because Sam, I really started paying attention to this when you started telling me some of the stories of how you were treated in our established Democratic Party. And this is Mafi Funk, and this is Shannon O'Brien. These are the people who are running that party, and they're running it into the ground, and they have made us so utterly unlikable that even if Trump has a freaking 30% disapproval rating, or approval rating, then people still won't come to our end of the equation, and that is horrifying. That is such an internal problem that we have to look at.
Well, and a great example, actually, I want to respond to that, and then there's a couple of comments I want to read out for everybody to be able to see. But a great example of exactly what we're talking about, we're actually having an issue right up here in Great Falls, where a member of our Cascade County Central Committee, and I won't name names just yet because there's a whole thing that's going on about it, but was because of a previous job that one of our candidates up here had run that he personally and disagrees with, started this huge attack, calling her a bunch of truly foul names and things that I'm not can't repeat on social media account because it's bad enough. And this is somebody that is one of our candidates. This is somebody that we're behind. This is somebody that's actively out there assisting with the community. She's literally been on the picket line with the unions. She has been out there, engaging with volunteer efforts all around town, with helping to raise money for charities. This is a genuinely good person. But it's the thing is, as much as the Democratic Party of Montana wants to sit here and say, hey, we're the party of the big tent, the leadership does everything they can to make it as secular and elitist of a group as possible. And I mean, shoot, I experienced that a ton just within my own campaign.
God, it's the elitism, man. Oh, it's so nauseating.
Oh, for sure. So, by the way, we have two comments here from Eric. We have legislature in Montana that rolled back protections already. MEPA was rendered a paper exercise, and numeric water quality standards were stripped. The lowest property tax rate for data centers wasn't the biggest tax policy issue. Creating tax loopholes for tenants to evade paying business taxes leaves a lot of hollow promises. Same with Northwestern Energy's actual filings with the PSC compared to its talking points. We are already behind Colorado in this. Yes, 100% agree with that, because you're right. Montana has done everything they can to shift the burden of taxes away from those who have the most and put it on the backs of those who have the least. It's the reason we have such a property tax issue in this damn state.
Sam, can you talk more about that, man? Just I'll admit that question was a little over my head.
So, essentially just he's pointing out a few things in here. First off, MEPA, which is, of course, our EPA that we have here, has essentially been stripped of any teeth and authority to be able to actually stop just straight up environmental destruction. And then one of the reasons why data centers have started looking so much to Montana, amongst other industries, and I'll definitely say it's not just data centers that this is an issue for, it's a number of extremely environmentally irresponsible industries that have been looking to move to Montana, because with the fact that they've been stripping out all those standards, and with the fact that the Montana legislature has repeatedly passed massive tax cuts for the highest earning businesses in Montana, it has created a huge issue, because yes, it definitely incentivizes more jobs to come here to Montana. But at the same time, it incentivizes those jobs to not pay into our infrastructure, to not pay into our social programs, and to not actually, be a part of the communities that they're going into. It's he also pointed out the tax hole, the tax loopholes for tenants to avoid paying business taxes. That is a very real problem, because they essentially the tax code in Montana has been so slapped together with just a number of competing additions that have been piled on top of itself over the years, that there is just essentially ways for businesses to get away with paying pretty much nothing in taxes. A great example, and me as somebody that doesn't even want to avoid paying taxes, for my C corporation that I own, last year my tax bill, after doing a fairly successful year, was $50, and that's not what it should be. Like, it's just not. Like, I should have paid way more than $50. And that's a problem, because on the other side, my LLC, which, to be fair, is where I make most of my money for my farrier business, I paid thousands of dollars in taxes as a single member LLC, and I paid $50 as a corporation. Why does that make sense? That's not okay. And then the other thing that we have here is how concerning is it?
Is that just bad policy, or just in confused policy, or
in my opinion, it's intentionally bad policy, because we've had members of the Montana legislature repeatedly, and I will say it's on both sides of the aisle, this is a problem, on both sides of the aisle, repeatedly passing legislation to create more loopholes, and they say it's an incentive for businesses to move here. But those businesses move here, the whole point of getting a business to move here is two things. One, they need to create new jobs, and two, they need to pay into our infrastructure. A lot of the businesses that are moving here under these loopholes are, give me one second, we just had a bunch of comments coming. A lot of the businesses that are moving here are either largely or semi-automated industries, which means where, yes, they do create some jobs, they don't create as many as they should, and they're also not paying into our infrastructure like they should. You can't have both. Like, I'm perfectly fine. Like, if a semi-automated or fully automated industry wants to move into Montana, I'm fine with that, but make them pay their damn taxes. The other comments we have, because we're following kind of behind here, is how concerning is it to you guys about the situation that happened in Colorado with the moratorium bill and the regulation bill, and both of them failing, and then data centers moving on with construction without regulation? So I very much, that's actually one of the talking points I had a lot, is it's the reason why I'm afraid of these really aggressive all or nothing talking points, because it creates situations like that where then these predatory companies, and I'll say I don't like most of the companies that are running data centers. I think that a lot of them are intentionally run by some of the most evil human beings on the planet. They are able to sow that division and then use it as a smokescreen to do whatever they want. That is one of the things I'm really concerned with. Another comment: as a farrier, Sam, I don't know if I agree that you should have paid more. Well, no, and that's the thing. My farrier business paid thousands in taxes. My corporation, which is my software development company, paid only $50. That's what I'm saying is reversed. Like, I think that the small time business is the one that should be getting the tax break, not the big company. Eric says
status is set up like a big corporation, like it's
right. I mean, it's still just me, but like even so, as just me, like I still think that I should pay more as a corporation. Right, totally. Exactly. I mean, shoot, I literally sold stock in a company. If you have a company that sells stock, you should pay more in taxes. I'm just saying.
Yeah, man. I mean.
Right. Eric says data centers had a property tax classification for outside shell building class 17. I think it's a strip mall for servers. The business equipment tax exemption was raised to 1 million. As a company with 50 million in servers simply still create 50 shell companies to evade taxes is nonsensical. They're not centrally assessed. Yes, I agree with this 100%.
Sam, who the hell are all your friends, man?
I mean, honestly, they're really not. Like, I mean, I got a few folks I know in the chat. I got some that I don't, but like, it's true though, because I mean, that's a good point. Is that a data center may not, and this is actually something I campaigned on in my campaign. A data center may not be considered such a evil thing to go in if it was actually paying into local communities. One of the things I had said in my campaign, I wanted to create for any fully automated industry, straight up give it a 35% higher tax rate, give it a brutally high tax rate, and make those taxes pay into the local community. It's not that hard.
I've got an example of that too. My father-in-law is down in Cheyenne, and they have a whole bunch of data centers down there. And like I think they're Microsoft, but they sent a whole bunch of people in and talked to the community. I don't know that a lot of people showed up when they and this is Cheyenne, so it's not Billings, but one of the things that they did, and this is Microsoft, is like there was an affordable housing construction plan, and it was like they were $3 million short. Microsoft just $3 million. Right. Like donated to the city. And to me, that's like that is the real hang up. It's like, well, if you're just going to come here, like, are you going to be a partner with us? Are you going to support us? Are you going to take us seriously? Or are you just going to exploit us? Because the way it looks in Montana to me is like they just want to exploit us. And
exactly.
That truly goes back to like what I saw with Alani's campaign, what I'm seeing, from all of these politicians, where all this money is just pouring in to confuse us, to complicate like just how we make decisions. And it's because they want to ram them down our throats, and they don't want to be accountable, and they want to do it faster than we can pass regulations. And I think that's what's so unnerving about this is that this is not a transparent process that we're watching unfold. And so I think you just have a lot of people who are alarmed about that. And, I read just the other day that Elon Musk is flying into, Bozeman and hanging out at the Yellowstone Club. And like, I don't know, man, do we want those types of people here just taking everything like they do everywhere else? And I think the answer is no. I think most Montanans have spoken very loudly, like that's not necessarily what we want, unless there is a real partnership where we're being listened to and like we're being respected and we're part of the equation. And I mean, to me, it's just that, like, but what I see is not anybody who wants to have a partnership with us. Nobody's like knocking doors in buildings asking us like how they could make data centers okay. Like, it's just not.
And see, and that's the thing though, is that's why I'm actually going to bring up a comment that just got put into the chat, because it perfectly exemplifies the thing I just wanted to say as a response to this. Is the reason why they're doing this here is because, quite frankly, we're in Montana, and I hate to talk bad about a state that I love, but no one cares what happens here. So they can do something here that would be abhorrent anywhere else, use it to set the standard, and then use it to do whatever they want in other places too. Now, the comment we just had come in is I believe and I wonder if you guys agree that Montana's in a unique position right now to set the standards and the regulations and the protections to take care of Montana citizens against any kind of opportunity for these companies to take advantage of the Montana ratepayers and landowners or residents in any way. We can learn from the mistakes our neighbors made and make these companies work for us. What do you guys think of that? That is exactly what I'm saying. And that's why I do believe, and I know I keep going back to this, but I fundamentally believe pushing for that full ban is the wrong way to go, because we've seen that fail in other states, multiple other states. I actually just did a quick check. Right now, there are 8 people running for office, both currently in office and running for office in the whole country, pushing for a full ban. There are over 70 pushing for the kind of regulations that would make these companies pay more taxes, force them to use the versions of these centers that don't use up all of the water and the electricity, force them to pay real money back into the communities that they're going into. And being a part of that effort, that right there already is enough votes to be able to force this as a floor issue in Congress. And we have the opportunity to do that. But if we lose momentum with a bunch of infighting about how extreme we want to get about it, we're going to end up just like Colorado with a bunch of bills, none of which have the juice to actually get through both houses of Congress. And then we're going to be left with data centers sucking the whole country dry and turning us into a freaking desert. And I think that that's a really, I think it's a really good thing, because, or a really good opportunity, though. Like the comment said, we are in an opportunity to really push back and be just like with the Montana plan, be the leader of the nation in this. Because since nobody does care what happens here, if we push back and we bring in support from other places, the opposition isn't going to see it coming. And there is support for this across the country.
Well, and look, man, I just love everything that you're saying there, Sam. Because to me, it's like Montana is unbelievably powerful, right? Because we have the same number of Senate seats as every other state, right? Like, dude, man, like that's incredible, right? and there's only 1 million of us, and we don't like being lied to. We're extraordinarily independent thinkers. Like this is just, it's all why we all came to this state, right? Because we believe in freedom, because we want the Wild West, man. Like we want to explore. We love what's untamed. And now we're at this juncture, and there's only 1 million of us, man, where truly outside forces like the billionaire overlords want to come into our state and just do whatever they want to. I mean, they want to buy up the crazy mountains. Like they literally are attempting to surround it in a way where the public just no longer can access it. And this is for the Yellowstone Club and for the big, and that is actively taking place. And there's only 1 million of us, man. And so we have this capacity for outreach that is just unprecedented. And this amount of political power that is so far beyond our population, if we can come together. And this is a moment to me where it's like we want to stand up. Like we came here because we don't like being told what to do. And so that's
and Montana has had a history for literally over 100 years of literally leading the country in progressive movements. This is the latest one of those. And the way that I look at the data center issue as a whole is that data is simply the latest resource that humans consume. And just like with coal, just like with precious metals, just like with any of the other resources, timber, anything else, there is a destructive way to acquire these resources that leaves communities covered in runoff slurry and with landslides because the trees are coming down, and barren deserts where nothing grows anymore. Or there's a way to do it sustainably where we can safely put in the regulations to be able to make it so that we can move forward as a society and use this resource without it killing all of us. And and that's the thing, is I think that we need to stop thinking of this as some esoteric thing that can be gotten rid of, because even what we're doing right now, we're pinging off 3 different data centers right now just to have this conversation. And that's the thing, is
the one in your garage, Sam?
Actually, no, that's not one of them, and that just shows it, right there. And see, and that's the entire thing, though, is that we have to have the conversation. How do we make this a renewable process and not a destructive process? And if we can't have that conversation, we're going to end up with a destructive process.
Well, And so I just even want to, because I know this about Brian and I know this about Alani. I don't necessarily know this about Sam Forstag, but like these are people that I've formed relationships with because they actively listen to community members.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so my process of getting involved in politics, which again is not something I ever anticipated or wanted, was like my son got cancer, he has Down syndrome, he had leukemia twice. And I was living with him in the hospital when they started cutting cancer research. And I was just outraged, right? And so I still didn't want to be involved in politics, but my wife found Russ Cleveland's, just some of his work, some of his posts, some of his story, about their battle with Madison. And that's why he got involved in politics. And so I reached out to him. My wife recommended that I do that. And he just called me back, and I was like, oh, you want to come on my podcast? He's like, yeah. And he did. And also got to meet his wife, who's just a just wonderful human being. Like, these are just wonderful people who have fought so hard. And then met one of his, Leah Bossler, like she was kind of stumping for him. And then she connected me with Alani. And then the same thing, man, like reached out to Alani and she just called me back. And the same thing with like Brian just called, like I had messaged Brian on Facebook and he just called me back. Like, these are people who are actively listening to us and actively forming their political identity. Like, these are not people who just like, like somebody like from Washington hands them a soundbite that they're supposed to repeat. Like truly everybody on the other side of the aisle, like they are just repeating sound bites that are like,
I'd say plenty of people on our side of the aisle too.
Yeah, totally, man. And I have some concerns too about that. And I truly want to talk about this Mafia Funk stuff because it just drives me absolutely off the wall. It's so distorted and so ugly, but like, these are people who are actively listening to us and shaping their, like, Brian is not a one-dimensional person who only feels one way about one thing.
Oh, great. Well, that's the thing, we had these conversations and he does, he does see the duality of there. But that's the reason why, like, I think that we need to keep having these conversations because we, and I'll say, having been a candidate recently, it is exceptionally easy to allow your opinion of a given topic to become very one-dimensional because it, quite frankly, it makes it easier. And it does appeal more strongly to a specific group of people where, having that more nuanced opinion, there are people on the extreme edges of it that they just shut down. They don't want to hear it. They stop listening. And that isn't good for anybody. But, I do understand where that push towards that comes from, but we really, really have to, like, we can't allow it to turn into that because it is a bad habit that eventually does turn into another Washington soundbite. And it's the reason why I do still talk to Brian on almost a daily basis because we are still having that conversation. And like one of the comments on Instagram earlier said, like, kind of confused is like, well, I didn't think that was Brian's opinion on that. And you're right. He is still forming his opinion, but that's why we have to keep having those conversations to make sure that the opinion has dimension to it as it gets formed. Joshua says, man, I'm really sorry to hear about your child. That's absolutely heartbreaking.
Oh, man, he's alive and well, dude.
He says, I encourage you to reach out to Sam Forstag. He is a representative of the people. Hey,
yeah, I've talked to Sam a bunch of times, man. I think, and because like I literally just bombed his Butte union meeting. And I had all his fishing gear in I was just sleeping in the back of my trunk and I showed up at his union.
Dude, I love that. By the way, also, I want to point something out because this to me just shows how fundamentally screwed up the data center issue has become. So you were talking about those data centers in Cheyenne, Wyoming, that Microsoft made. So I just looked something up because I wanted to make sure I wasn't off base with this. Those centers are dual centers, which means they can either be open loop, the ones that suck up all the water, produce a lot of pollution, are super loud, and at the same time, they're also built to it's the new standard they're building them to is what they're calling the fair water standard. And here's the thing that makes me so angry about these. These centers are designed so that they can be run as closed loop, non-evaporative systems, meaning the versions that don't use all the water, don't put out all the pollution, and don't make all the noise. They're voluntarily choosing to not run them that way, though, because it gives them a better profit margin. That's the thing. These companies already know that eventually regulation is going to come for them. So they're building with future proofing in mind, so they can just flip a switch and make them the sustainable version. But that's the thing, is that why the real only reason they're not doing it is because they can give a little bit more money to their shareholders right now by not flipping that switch. And that's why, like, I want to get in there and I want to just aggressively go with those companies and force them to flip those switches, because they could do it. They could make this not harmful to the communities right now, and they're choosing not to.
Man, I love that. That like just puts you like that's the finger right on the pulse of
Right.
what the issue is. And if we don't have the infrastructure to advocate for ourselves, then that will be the outcome, because they will look at profits and profits alone. They won't look at people. And so this is why we've got to be really loud and ensure that this is done correctly, because I'm also, man, I mean, this is just me. I'm again, the guy, like, I'm not speaking for anybody else. Like I'm not personally totally opposed to the data centers. Like I believe in the future, man. I use AI all the time. Like it's a really effective tool. And so, you know, like, but I do think that these people, they just show this propensity to just step.
Well, and like we just got a comment that says, I'd like to point out that Wyoming is a right to work state, and they're not worker friendly. This is the difference. We have here in Montana, Republican or Democrat, we're all still Montana workers, and that's a great point, because again, we need to show, like, hey, we're not going to tolerate this. You got to do this in a way that's actually benefiting people, man. You can't just suck up all the resources until you're told not to. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time is the worst evil imaginable is the indifference of good men. And it's the thing. These are companies that could do things in a way that's beneficial, and they're voluntarily choosing not to. It's not that they can't. And until we force them,
like they say, it's their fiduciary duty to their stockholders. But I mean, that is just a bullshit excuse for
exactly
on our throats.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing, is it shows that they know it's coming, and they could choose to be the better man, be the good person, and they're just not, because, well, we don't feel like it. Screw that. Let's be the ones that make a new standard and force these people to actually be representatives of the people.
Yeah, man, I agree with that. Well, hey, and so I wanted to respond to that earlier comment, and if this I mean, probably what we're doing, we'll get to Sam Forstack at some point in time, and please tell him to just come talk to me. Like I used to have some dialogue with Sam on a fairly regular basis, and I've just watched him get bigger and get more national and get more. And to me, that's really problematic, man. Like if he stops talking to the people who actually live in Montana, because he's spending all his time in Washington, like I find that problematic. And so I kind of just watched that. And I mean, I get that he's got to protect himself. And like, obviously, man, one of his encounters with me is I just like showed up at his union meeting. Like, so I get that. But at the same time, man, like one of the reasons I did that is to ensure that people are, like, we have to listen to like us, man. Like there has to be that dialogue between like the people actually living here and the people who are representing us. And again, there's a million people in this state, man. Like we can change minds and we can change hearts and we can find unique ways to reach people that other states just don't have the capacity to do. Like, which is why we're just so powerful. Like it's why we have this massive outsized capacity.
Mm-hmm. And
we're motherfucking Montana, man.
I mean, Montana's always led the way. I think we need to keep doing it. Justice Sam is extremely approachable, and if I can, I will help get him on the podcast with you. Yes, please do. We would love to have him on. We will. We'd love to talk to him about all these issues, because I mean, shoot, we're all Montana folk here. It'd be great to have a Montana folk conversation.
Well, and truly too, like there is this reality where we have to have these nuanced, complex conversations about how we're going to approach these complex issues. But at the same time, like we also need to vote Sam, Alani, Brian, man. Like I don't like that. Like if we cannot stay unified in that respect, like we are in deep shit, which is why I am so alarmed by the stuff from O'Brien and Tester and like funding this like pro Alani like primary ad campaign and then pulling the funding. Like truly because they thought she would be the weaker candidate against Bodner, like, and then doing that from inside of the Democratic Party. Like, fine, man, you want to run an independent? Like, I've been hoping that would happen for a really long time, man, because I'm so disgusted with Democrats. But like to do that from inside the Democratic Party, like while undermining your own candidate is deplorable. And it's so underhanded. And it's truly, once again, man, why even with a 23% approval rating, Trump, like people still won't leave that party. like, because we're worse. And that is a really disturbing reality to confront, that all of us, man, we should look in the freaking mirror, you know?
Right. Well, and I mean, I'd love to have the conversation. We are running a little bit short on time tonight, but I would love to have the conversation about the. I'd be very, very curious to hear your opinions more fully, and I have quite a few of my own as well. And maybe not 100% overlap, but it would be very interesting. And I think that maybe we will have to do that on the next podcast. We are going to be doing this now as a weekly event every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. So if you have stuck with us thus far, you've enjoyed the conversation, and you would like to continue to be a part of it, please make sure that you add it to your calendar. And for anybody that is interested, Josh, especially, if you ever want to hop onto the show and talk a little bit with us about some of the issues that you're seeing from your end of it, we would absolutely love to have you on board. You got my number. Feel free to hit me up. And please help us get Sam on the podcast. We really want to talk to him.
Well, and I got a couple of thoughts too, man. And then we're going to close out. Like, one is truly, like, if there is a content expert between the two of us, like, it is literally Sam. It is not me. Like, I am a concerned citizen who am so sickened by what I'm seeing come out of Washington, that, you know, and so sickened, like, by, like, I was in the hospital when they were cutting that funding. I was watching kids get pulled off of research programs. Like, it was just utterly heartbreaking. And my son survived. He beat leukemia twice. He's actually the only kid with Down syndrome to get a bone marrow transplant at Denver Children's and make it to the other side. He's a living miracle. He's just a beautiful little human being. And, you know, like, that's for me, that's what this is about. Like, I'm going to fight for my kids, man. I'm going to fight for their future. And so, like, I decided to start getting loud. And I think all of us need to do that. Like, all of us have different skill sets. We all have different gift mixes. And so this is just a request to anybody who's listening and participating in this to just get loud, like, figure it out, because we don't have a lot more time, man. Like, I think November will be very telling as to whether or not we still have a democracy. And that is so concerning for my children's future. And so, like, please, man, like, Montana, we have so much influence. Our voices are so much louder than a city with, 20 million people or whatever it is, man. Like we just have the capacity to influence this conversation. So please join us and get loud.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% with you on that. And, that is that we have to be able to come together. We have to be able to keep having these conversations, and we have to actually get a unified front to make sure that we are able to help secure that democracy. And that goes everything from our national level to right here and what's happening in our own, small communities. So, we're going to keep having that conversation, and I want to make sure that we can provide as much of a platform as we possibly can to every single person who's running. Make sure that we're able to hear directly from Brian and Lonnie and our union members, and from Sam Forstag and from everyone else, so that we can make sure that we can pull back some of this obfuscation that makes it so easy to get lost in the weeds and have this, it's what they said, or it's what I said, and give a little bit of clarity to what's going on. So we're going to keep being back here every week, and thank you all so much for joining.